Labour and the Devil's 6 Brexit Tests. Keir Starmer set out 6 Brexit tests from Labour that, if the government abided by, Labour would vote in favour of the Brexit deal Mrs May presents. The only problem for Labour is that regardless of what the Tories come back with for Brexit, they will still be voting in favour of a Tory policy. No Labour politician wants the Tories retaining power. So let's look at the 6 tests in detail. Test 1. Does it ensure a strong and collaborative future relationship with the EU?
Is it a clean break? Is there any holdover of ties to Europe?
Well, there'll be an ongoing relationship. The Prime Minister, again, almost at the same time the President was in the UK, published a white paper on our ambitions for our future relationship. We're leaving the EU, but we're not leaving Europe. We're totally committed to European prosperity, European security. We will have a deep, comprehensive economic partnership with the with the EU, but also one that allows us to go and deepen and strengthen relationships with the US and other growth markets around the world.
In other words, Labour doesn't want us to fall out with the EU politically or economically. How this gets done is a guessing game, but it already seems like we've fallen out plenty of times. I believe we have already failed this test, but it was inevitable we would. Test 2. Does it deliver the exact same benefits as we currently have as members of the single market and customs union?
Free trade deals are great. Let's hope that we get one with the EU. I think it looks more and more likely that Britain will. And let Britain try to get them with the rest of the world too, which does require leaving the single market and the customs union. You don't get all the benefits, it's true, but there will be new benefits to be reaped by these new opportunities. I mean, obviously, Labour's 6-point plan doesn't add up. Points 2 and 3 on the exact same benefits and then sort of a UKIP line on migration contradict each other. But I think the broader point here is that there are going to be a lot of Remainers in particular absolutely dumbfounded in March 2019 when the UK does leave the European Union and it doesn't fall off a cliff. It's not going to be perfect right away, but I think it's going to be okay.
In other words, is it almost exactly like being inside the customs union and single market, which mean not being able to make trade deals outside the customs union and accepting free movement of people? Otherwise, the EU says we can't have Brexit a la carte. Again, this test was an inevitable fail. Test 3. Does it ensure the fair management of migration in the interest of the economy and communities?
So she today, along with her Home Secretary Sajid Javid, are making this announcement. It has been approved by Cabinet and also the Labour Party, so it has a big backing here in the UK, and it will see the passports of short-stay tourists and people from low-risk countries all being scanned at e-gates. At the moment, that's just done for EU citizens. Security and criminal background checks will be done, so like the US ESTA system, workers wanting to stay for longer will have to make a minimum salary that ensures they do not compete with UK workers. Successful applicants for jobs will only be able to bring their families with them if they're sponsored, and there will be no cap on student visas. So quite a big change to the UK's immigration system. We already know from the Prime Minister, she made it very clear earlier on in the negotiations that all EU citizens living in the UK would get the right to remain. That included, we found out last week after her quite dramatic Salzburg incident, the statement that she put out from Downing Street, that includes in the no-deal scenario. She doesn't think it's right that those people are bargaining chips. So quite a big offer from Theresa May when she did that to the EU, but quite big changes for people wanting to come and work and visit the UK. Theresa May says that the British public voted to leave the European Union and take back control of borders. When we leave, we will end freedom of movement once and for all. Crucially, it will be fair to ordinary working people. For too long, they have felt they've been ignored on immigration.
They want to let in migrants who have family members already here, or in areas of the job sector that lack employment, such as the NHS. But they will keep wages higher than it currently is. This test is sort of pending post-Brexit. Test 4. Does it defend the rights and protections and prevent a race to the bottom?
Well, the worst case scenario is that Britain ends up as a kind of Singapore on the edge of Europe, competing on the basis of deregulation.
The Prime Minister is very keen on red lines. She's got lots of them. She's ruled out staying in the customs union and in the single market, which would protect jobs.
My argument is that working people across Europe have an interest in defending a level playing field on workers' rights. What we don't want to see is firms using British workers to undercut German or French workers and end up in a race to the bottom. I met Monsieur Barnier today, and his message was very clear that if the Prime Minister of Britain sticks to her red lines of coming out of the single market and customs union, then all we're left with is the option of a free trade deal. And that poses real threats to workers' rights, their livelihoods and their jobs. Whose rules would I rather play by? I would rather play by the rules of the single market and the customs union, imperfect though it may be, than be told by President Trump what should happen to our steel industry.
In other words, does it stop companies importing cheap labour to get the highest profits? Again, pending post-Brexit. Test 5. Does it protect national security and our capacity to tackle cross-border crime?
Well, no country has ever exited from the EU before. We do know Britain remains a central component of the UN Security Council, NATO, and is one of the Five Eyes, the intelligence sharing network between the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Well, the question is, will the relationship remain the same, and will the equivalent amount of intelligence still be shared?
The actual bedrock of what is the so-called special relationship between the USA and the UK ever since World War II has been an incredibly close, a uniquely close working relationship, particularly between our listening posts, the NSA, and the UK's version, which is called GCHQ, Government Communications Headquarters. And I really don't see that they can afford to fall out long term.
If May does stay in power, the relationship with the US and the UK are also in the air. After the Manchester attacks, US intelligence reportedly leaked Salman Abedi's name to the press, something UK officials wanted to keep quiet until they were further into the investigation.
I will make clear to President Trump that intelligence that is shared between our law enforcement agencies must remain secure.
Will we still keep European arrest warrants, etc.? The EU has already agreed our security part of the Chequers deal, so I'd say we've kind of passed this one. And test 6. Does it deliver for all regions and nations of the UK?
I think the key thing is to get the deal with the European Union, because that's what will protect jobs and the economic interests of people in this country and the integrity of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Then we go to Parliament and we make the case. And I think that our parliamentary colleagues at that point will have to face up to the fact that there is a real decision about this country's future to be taken. We have not yet had any credible alternative from those who are criticising the Prime Minister's plan. They need to come up with that alternative. They've had plenty of months to think about it.
Warning, warning, Northern Ireland and Scotland as well, which by the way is currently stopping the UK from getting a trade deal at all because both countries can threaten us with independence. Northern Ireland obviously doesn't want a hard border, the SNP wants to be in the customs union and single market. At the moment, this is a huge, whopping Brexit ending fail. So far, the government has passed 1 out of 6, with 2 pending and 4 fails. But with the Tories split, the DUP being adamant against the hard border in Northern Ireland, and the SNP ready to walk out of the UK door, Theresa May faces a choice. Whether to find a way of uniting her party plus the DUP to get the numbers to pass a deal through, or to turn to the Labour side and try and win over some of their party. Either way, Labour want a general election very soon, but also don't want a no deal. But do you agree with me? Join in the debate below and subscribe.